Mexico strikes back. U.S. auto industry faces collapse amid brutal trade war. The economic shockwave has just begun. In a jaw-dropping twist that is sending shockwaves through global markets, President Donald Trump has officially signed a new round of devastating tariffs on Mexican imports, sending the U.S.-Mexico trade relationship spiraling into chaos. But hold on. What's coming next will leave you speechless. Mexico has just unleashed its own bombshell. It's cutting off essential auto component exports to the United States. This unprecedented move is putting the very survival of the U.S. automotive industry at risk, and the clock is ticking. This isn't just some trade skirmish. This is an all-out battle for North America's economic future. For decades, the United States and Mexico have been locked in an unbreakable web of interdependence, with millions of cars rolling off American assembly lines thanks to critical parts shipped from Mexico. From wiring harnesses to full engine assemblies, Mexico has been the beating heart of U.S. auto manufacturing. But now that lifeline has been severed, and the impact is catastrophic. U.S. car factories in crisis, thousands of jobs at risk. The auto industry could collapse overnight. The fallout from Mexico's explosive retaliation is already unfolding, and it's worse than anyone could have imagined. Major U.S. automakers like Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis are facing catastrophic delays as their production lines grind to a halt. Auto plants across Michigan, Ohio, and Kentucky, states that are the backbone of American car manufacturing, are shutting down, with thousands of workers sent home indefinitely. Entire factories could be forced to close, pushing U.S. automakers to the brink of financial disaster. But it gets even worse. The automotive industry operates on a just-in-time manufacturing model, which means that every single part must arrive at precisely the right moment. Any disruption, no matter how small, sends the entire system crashing down. With Mexico cutting off key components, these plants are now paralyzed. Every minute that a factory remains closed equals millions of dollars in lost revenue. As this disaster continues to unfold, the economic impact is expected to skyrocket, putting the livelihoods of millions of workers, suppliers, and consumers in serious jeopardy. Stock market plunges. Automakers' stock prices crash as investors panic. Global economic chaos looms. The financial markets are already in turmoil. Stock prices for major automakers have plunged to new lows as investors panic over the escalating trade war and the devastating impact it's having on the supply chain. What started as a conflict over tariffs is now evolving into a full-scale crisis that is shaking the very foundations of the global economy. The uncertainty is palpable, with fears growing that the ripple effects will be felt across all industries, from steel and electronics to logistics and beyond. The automotive sector isn't the only one suffering. Steel manufacturers, electronics producers, and logistics companies that rely on the smooth flow of goods across the US-Mexico border are all seeing their stock values collapse. Even the global market is feeling the heat as investors brace for an economic storm of unprecedented proportions. And if this conflict continues to escalate, it could lead to a broader economic meltdown, one that could engulf industries and consumers across the world. Trade war escalates. Could Mexico's bold move lead to America's worst economic nightmare? Mexico isn't backing down. Far from it. While its economy is heavily intertwined with trade with the US, Mexico has spent years strategically diversifying its trade relationships, especially with China, the European Union, and South America. This diversification has given Mexico an economic cushion that it can now rely on in this trade war, making it far less vulnerable to U.S. pressure than anyone could have anticipated. By cutting off auto exports, Mexico is making a dramatic statement. It's not just a bystander in this dispute. It's a key player in the game, and it's ready to play hardball. This move isn't just a response to tariffs. It's a calculated strategy designed to pressure the U.S. to the negotiating table. And Mexico's not afraid to keep turning up the heat. If Mexico succeeds in drawing more international manufacturers into its market, it could permanently weaken the U.S.'s dominance in North American auto production. This isn't just about the auto industry. It's a geopolitical shift that could have far-reaching consequences for the entire region. The U.S. could lose its top position in global manufacturing, and that's a game changer. Job losses, price hikes, and economic instability. the impact will be felt by every American. The political fallout is equally explosive. What started as a move to protect American jobs is now putting those very jobs at risk. The Trump administration justified the tariffs by claiming they would reduce dependence on foreign imports and boost U.S. manufacturing. But the unintended consequence is chilling. American auto workers are now facing the very real threat of job losses as factories close and production halts. The dealership network is already buckling under the pressure. With critical parts missing, car dealerships across the U.S. are seeing their inventories dwindle, and the prices for both new and used vehicles are skyrocketing. Consumers who were already hesitant to buy due to economic uncertainty are now being priced out of the market entirely. Can the U.S. avoid a full-blown economic crisis? Or is this just the beginning of a disaster? The situation is rapidly spiraling out of control. The clock is ticking, and the U.S. government is running out of time to find a solution before this crisis turns into a full-blown disaster. Some lawmakers are calling for an immediate end to the tariffs and a return to diplomatic negotiations with Mexico, while others are doubling down on a hardline stance, refusing to back down to what they see as Mexico's attempts to bully the U.S. For Mexico, the stakes are just as high. While its economy is closely tied to trade with the U.S., it's making it clear that it's not afraid to walk away from the table. By cutting off auto exports, Mexico is sending a message. It's no longer just a sidekick in this economic relationship. It's a force to be reckoned with. Mexico is now actively courting international manufacturers, positioning itself as a top destination for automotive production in North America. The global fallout, how the U.S.-Mexico trade war could reshape North America's economic future. The global implications of this crisis are massive. As the U.S. and Mexico face off, businesses and industries across the world are watching with bated breath. If this trade war escalates further, it could spark a massive restructuring of global supply chains, one that could leave the U.S. economy in shambles. The automotive industry, once a shining example of cross-border cooperation, is now at the center of a geopolitical battle that could change the economic landscape of North America for good. If this conflict isn't resolved soon, the damage could be irreparable. The U.S. automotive industry might never recover from this catastrophic disruption. Prices for cars could continue to rise, leading to a dramatic decrease in consumer spending and a potential economic slowdown. Other industries that rely on seamless trade with Mexico, such as agriculture and consumer goods, are already bracing for the worst. The countdown begins. The future of North American trade hangs in the balance. The U.S. and Mexico are at a crossroads, and the choices made in the coming weeks will determine the future of North American trade for generations to come. Will President Trump hold firm on his aggressive tariffs, risking even more economic chaos? Or will both nations seek a diplomatic resolution before this trade war spirals out of control? As the automotive industry stands on the brink of collapse, workers, businesses, and investors are facing an uncertain future. The next few weeks will be critical. The path to resolution is unclear, and the stakes have never been higher. One thing is certain: the decisions made now will reshape the economic and political landscape of North America for years to come. Stay tuned, because the story of this trade war is far from over, and the impact will be felt across the globe.